Some shocks hit you as fast as a bullet, and by the time you realize you have been shot, everything is already beyond saving. I used to think the greatest pain of my life was losing my parents. I was wrong. The real pain was discovering that the remaining family had stabbed me without even blinking. On the day of the will reading, I finally understood, family does not always mean love. My name is Mia Carter, 27 years old, born and raised in the suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina. My parents, Mr. Henry and Mrs. Linda Carter, were wealthy entrepreneurs owning numerous properties and shares in major companies. To outsiders, our family was the ideal model: successful, powerful, and proud. We filled the dusty oak-paneled room of Rawlings and Company law office. I wore a simple black dress, my hands numb from clenching so tightly, while my perfect older sister, Vanessa Carter, 30 years old, donned a brand new Chanel outfit, her lips curled into a sly smirk. When Mr. Rawlings, the aging family lawyer, began reading the will, each word felt like it was slicing into my skin. To our beloved daughter Vanessa, he paused, adjusting his glasses. We leave the entire real estate portfolio, financial assets, and the mansion in the Hamptons. Vanessa tilted her head, her diamond ring flashing with each subtle movement, her eyes gliding over me with a look of pure satisfaction, as if she had declared victory over my dead body. And me? Mr. Rawlings continued, his voice gravelly as if struggling with discomfort. To our daughter Mia, the old Carter farm located in the outskirts of Rock Creek, Wyoming. Silence fell over the room like a suffocating blanket. I could not breathe. The old farm? The one abandoned for over 2 decades since Grandpa's death? A desolate piece of land, with a crumbling house and waist-high weeds? Laughter, cold as a knife's edge, sliced through the silence. Vanessa. Makes sense, she sneered, folding her arms. Mia always preferred playing in mud over attending cocktail parties anyway. Laughter spread like a virus among the aunts and uncles, who once patted my head and called me sweet little Mia. Today, their eyes saw nothing but a failure. I bit my lip until the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, but I did not shed a single tear. I would not give them that satisfaction. There must be some mistake, one aunt, Mrs. Diane, blurted out, her voice a mix of confusion and irritation. Henry and Linda would never leave Mia with just that chicken coop. Mr. Rawlings shook his head, flipping to a page stamped with a bright red seal. The will was properly signed and legally certified. There is no mistake. Vanessa shrugged dramatically, her expensive gold bracelet jingling lightly. Oh, come on, Aunt Diane. Mia loves nature. A rundown farm in Wyoming will be her little paradise. A short, razor-sharp laugh escaped Vanessa's lips. I stood up, my fingers trembling as they clenched the rusty old key Mr. Rawlings had handed me, along with a manila envelope containing the property deed. No one stopped me as I walked out of that room saturated with hypocrisy. No one even called after me. They had decided I was only worthy of dust and decay. My old Honda Civic roared as I sped out of the parking lot, the engine growling like the anger boiling inside me. I had lost my parents, and now I had lost my family too. I gripped the key tighter, a spark of fury igniting deep within my chest. If they thought I would crumble, crawl back to Vanessa begging for crumbs, they were dead wrong. I had the farm. I had myself. And I swore, even if it was nothing but ruins, I would turn it into something they could never dare to look down on again. Even if the whole world turned its back on me, I would keep walking forward. My eyes burned, not with pain anymore, but with fire. The road to Rock Creek stretched endless and lonely, as if daring me to turn back. But I did not. The land my family saw as a burden would be where I began anew, or it would bury me trying. My Honda rattled violently as I crossed the rusted gates of Carter Farm. Everything was exactly as I imagined, or worse. Weeds grew taller than a man. Broken fences leaned and sagged. The main house stood like a sagging gray corpse under the heavy cloudy sky. But what drew my eyes instantly was the old barn at the far end of the property. Its tin roof was pockmarked like Swiss cheese. Its wooden planks rotted so badly a strong gust could knock it over. Yet somehow, it still stood. Like an old soldier too stubborn to fall. I pulled up my collar against the cold, gripped the bunch of keys tight, and trudged toward the barn. Every step sank deep into the muddy ground. The freezing air cut through my skin. My hand trembled as I touched the rotting door, a hard shove. The hinges screamed into the empty air, a sound like a soul wailing from the underworld. Inside, it was pitch black, with only a few lonely beams of light piercing through cracks in the walls. Rusted tractors, shattered crates, and broken farming tools lay scattered like bones in a graveyard. But something felt wrong. I had been here before. A distant memory surfaced. 5-year-old me, gripping Grandpa Jacob Carter's rough hand. Sneaking into this very barn. He had whispered in his warm, gravelly voice. "The greatest treasures are never found on the surface, little Mia." I scanned the dusty space. Something was off. The inside dimensions did not match the outside. My heart thudded painfully as I knelt by the north wall. I vaguely remembered Grandpa's old game, 3 taps, then push a certain plank. My fingers searched the splintered wood until they found a slight bump. Yeah. The air around me seemed to freeze solid. I took a deep breath and pressed the 4th board from the bottom. Blick! A small but sharp sound pierced the silence. Beneath my feet, part of the floor shuddered. I stumbled back, watching wide-eyed as a square hatch silently creaked open, revealing a staircase descending into utter darkness. Before, I might have run, but today fear was not what pushed me. Today, a fierce need burned inside me. I had to know the truth. Turning on the flashlight from my phone, I carefully stepped down each creaky stair, my breath pounding in my ears. The air down there was freezing, and heavy with the smell of mold. The staircase led to a spacious room, perfectly hidden beneath the layer of dry earth and stone. Faint light swept across the walls, covered in papers, maps, and charts I could not immediately understand. At the center of the room stood a large work table blanketed in dust, a tattered canvas sheet draped over complicated machinery, gauges, test tubes, and sample analyzers. A laboratory. Right beneath the ground. I could barely believe my eyes. Grandpa Jacob, the man the entire family had mocked as the eccentric old man, had secretly built a research facility right in what they had deemed worthless land. The flashlight flickered toward the corner of the room. A large safe stood, towering, covered in thick cobwebs. I approached it, palms drenched in sweat. 3 spins, and I gambled on the only number I thought Grandpa might use, my birthday, July 16, 1997. Then, the lock popped open. Slowly, I pulled the heavy door aside. Inside was no gold or cash, but a dark brown leather-bound notebook, and a USB drive carefully wrapped in a waterproof leather pouch. I flipped open the notebook. On the first page, written in neat blue ink, it said, "To Mia, the only grandchild who ever truly saw the real value. If you are reading this, it is time for the truth to be revealed." My fingers trembled as I turned each page. Inside were detailed notes on geological surveys, chemical analyses, and complex engineering schematics I only faintly understood. There was one thing I was absolutely certain of. Grandpa had discovered something profoundly important and had entrusted it to me, not to anyone else. I looked up, the flashlight beam cutting across the dusty ceiling. At that moment, I swore to myself. Whether it was treasure, technology, or something far beyond imagination, I would uncover it all. Because I now held something they, the family who had discarded me, could never take back. I plugged the USB into the battered laptop I had brought along, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would shatter my chest. The screen flickered, then a single folder appeared named Project Perseus. I swallowed hard, my hand trembling as I moved the mouse to open the first file. Documents flooded the screen. Geological diagrams, mineral survey reports, process flow charts, along with dozens of patents signed under the name Jacob A. Carter. I flipped through the leather notebook on the table, piecing together the information. My grandpa was no crazy old fool as everyone had believed. He had uncovered one of the largest rare earth deposits in the northwestern United States, right underneath the Rock Creek Farm. Not only that, he had invented a completely new rare earth extraction method. Costs 60% lower than traditional methods. No groundwater contamination. No toxic waste residue. A technology that could overturn the entire mining industry. A technology that would drive multinational corporations insane if they ever found out it existed. I sat frozen on the cold concrete floor, the flashlight beam swaying over the detailed mineral map carefully framed and hung on the wall. Beneath the barren, desolate ground was a treasure. Not gold or silver, but materials even more precious in the tech era. Neodymium, dysprosium, praseodymium. The essential elements for manufacturing electric motors, smartphones, and renewable energy systems. I turned to the final page of the notebook. A small slip of paper was tucked between the sheets, written in the familiar slanted handwriting. Mia, if you are reading this, know that I trust you. What I leave behind is not meant for the greedy, but for those with vision. Be cautious, they will try to steal it. Never let greed guide your way. I closed the notebook, a fierce wave of emotion rising in my chest. For years, I had lived in Vanessa's shadow. Belittled, forgotten, shoved aside. But now, I held the key to changing my life. Not just my life, but a part of the world's future as well. There was another folder on the USB, labeled Legal. I opened it, holding my breath. Inside were scanned copies of filed patents, complete with application numbers. Grandpa had completed all the legal steps necessary, but had deliberately left the commercialization dormant. Among the documents was a notarized letter of authorization stating that all intellectual property developed on Rock Creek Farm belonged solely to Mia Carter. What did that mean? It meant that every invention, every mineral deposit beneath my feet, was legally mine. No one, not a single person, could demand a share. I let out a dry laugh in the freezing underground bunker. All those years, they had looked at me like I was worthless. And now, I was sitting on a gold mine they never even knew existed. But I understood. If word of this got out too soon, I would be crushed before I had a chance to stand. Vanessa, Aunt Diane, the leeches who lived off inheritance. If they found out, they would stop at nothing to take it from me. I had to move carefully. I had to make this real before anyone noticed. I shut down the laptop, packed the USB and the notebook tightly into my backpack, and zipped it up. Standing up, I looked around the underground room one last time. Every wall, every piece of paper here, was Grandpa's true legacy. Not lavish mansions or flashy parties, but knowledge, trust, and the chance to build my own worth. I climbed the stairs, every step heavy, but my heart surging with determination. The secret door slammed shut behind me. Outside, the night wind howled bitterly. I tilted my head up toward the pitch-black sky, silently promising. The game was only just beginning. I returned to the old wooden house with a burning fire raging in my veins. There was no time to drown in emotions. I needed to act, fast, precise, and absolutely discreet. That night, under the dim light, I dug through old contact books and emails, searching for connections I had slowly built during my years working in finance in Charleston. I knew I could not do this alone. But I also could not reveal too much to anyone. The first number I dialed was Daniel Morgan, a corporate lawyer I had met while consulting on an infrastructure investment project. He was notorious for his discretion and absolute loyalty, at a steep price. The call lasted barely 3 minutes. I need to meet you. This has to remain completely confidential. If you refuse, we will pretend this call never happened. Daniel responded with a single sentence. Send me the address by text. I will be there within 12 hours. I did not stop. The second call went to Dr. Hannah Lee, a mining engineer who had won awards for her research in sustainable mining. I knew she was being suppressed in a major corporation and was always looking for a chance to do something groundbreaking. Hannah, if you are ready to leave everything behind to join a project that could change the industry, I have what you are looking for. Silence. Then a deep breath of excitement from the other end. Send me the address and the start date. The final call was to Ryan Cole, an independent financial consultant who had left Wall Street because he could no longer stomach the dirty games in the banking world. A brilliant strategist, but more importantly, loyal only to his own principles. Ryan, I said bluntly, I need someone who can keep money clean like a polished altar. I am not doing anything illegal, but I need anonymity. He let out a raspy laugh. You have piqued my curiosity, Mia Carter. 3 days later, at a shabby motel 20 miles outside Rock Creek, we sat around a plastic table. No contracts, no paperwork. Just a verbal agreement. I spread out the USB drive, copies of patents, and mineral survey files before them. Daniel's eyes narrowed like a blade. Hannah almost gasped with excitement. Ryan remained silent, but his half-smile said everything. We set up a company immediately, Daniel said, tapping the table quickly. Not under your direct name. I will create a chain of subsidiaries, each owning a small part, so no one can trace the real owner. Hannah sketched a technology diagram on the back of a motel receipt. I can set up a small-scale lab within 3 months if you can find a reliable supplier. Your grandpa's old lab foundation is solid enough for it. Ryan simply lifted his coffee cup, squinting. I will establish a separate investment fund funneling capital into each phase through offshore accounts. If anyone snoops, all they will see is a bunch of obscure green tech companies. I nodded, each word heavy, like nails hammered into blood and bone. There can be no mistakes. One leak and we are dead. They needed no more convincing. They had chosen to walk this path with me. 2 weeks later, the dilapidated barn had transformed. We installed new electrical systems, private satellite Wi-Fi, air filtration units, and rows of specialized computers. Small-scale extraction devices were placed in the underground bunker, connected to the barn by a narrow passage Hannah designed. The exterior walls of the barn remained, covered in rotting wood, perfectly disguising the high-tech research center inside. We named the project Helios Labs, at Hannah's suggestion, meaning light within the earth. The official company name on paperwork was Rock Creek Sustainable Resources, LLC, with no traceable link to the Carter family. Every day, I worked from dawn until midnight, poring over each page of Grandpa's documents, updating the latest advancements in sustainable mining technology, and discussing with Hannah how to optimize the process. At night, standing alone inside the silent barn, I would tilt my head back, staring at the patchy ceiling, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I knew I was playing a big game, one where if I failed, I would lose everything, and if I succeeded, I would rewrite my destiny. But deeper than ambition or fear, there was one thing I knew for certain. I would never let anyone steal what I and my grandpa had built. Not Vanessa. Not greedy family. Not anyone. The cold April wind blew fiercely, scattering white flyers across Rock Creek's main street. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of my simple dark blue dress. Today was the wedding day of Vanessa Carter, the family's golden child, the symbol of success they once paraded in front of me to measure and belittle. The ceremony was held at a private estate in Charleston. The very home that once belonged to my parents, now solely Vanessa's property, after the shameful division of the inheritance. I had almost decided not to go. Honestly, I had no desire to see their fake smiles. But Daniel, my lawyer, had reminded me, sometimes being at the right place at the right time is what makes a counterstrike truly sweet. So, I went. When I stepped into the grand hall, the crystal chandelier blazed overhead, casting glittering light onto the polished marble floors. Guests dressed in extravagant outfits, laughter and chatter echoing loudly through the space. Vanessa stood on the stage, her crystal-studded wedding gown shimmering like falling stars, hand in hand with her new husband, a hedge fund manager named Luke Patterson, infamous for his talent at spending other people's money. When her eyes caught mine, the corners of her mouth lifted into a cold smile, as if bestowing pity upon a loser. "Mia," she called sweetly. "Oh, you had some free time to attend? How is the farm doing?" I clutched my small clutch tightly and gave a light, airy smile. "Doing fine, quite busy lately." Luke squinted, curious. "I hear farmland investments are profitable these days." I just shrugged, smiling as if it were a trivial matter. Sometimes the things people think are worthless turn out to be surprisingly profitable. Vanessa burst out laughing, her laughter echoing like shattered bells, causing a few guests nearby to chuckle along. I stayed silent, my gaze calm as I watched each pitying pat on the back they gave me. If they knew that just a few hours earlier, Rock Creek Sustainable Resources had signed 3 exclusive rare earth supply contracts with top tech corporations in the United States, valued at over $200 million during the trial phase, would they still dare to laugh? No, definitely not. Immediately after that lavish wedding ceremony, while Vanessa and her new husband honeymooned in the Maldives, at Rock Creek, our Helios Labs moved into Phase 2. Official extraction. Hannah supervised each drilling machine operating around the clock, while Daniel handled a mountain of complex contracts to ensure everything remained untraceable to me. Ryan stayed busy, constructing a financial maze more complicated than a labyrinth, hiding every stream of incoming capital. We worked like people racing against death. No mistakes, no delays, not a moment of carelessness. And then, when everything ran smoothly, when the samples passed every stringent test, when tech companies lined up to sign long-term contracts, I gave Daniel the order for the final move. On May 17th, Rock Creek Sustainable Resources officially listed on the Nasdaq under the stock symbol RCA. The news exploded like an atomic bomb. Rural startup breaks China's rare earth monopoly, Wall Street Journal headlined on the front page. Clean mining technology, a turning point for the industry, Forbes analyzed. Rock Creek Sustainable Resources, from abandoned farm to green gold mine, Bloomberg commented. In just 24 hours, the company's market value hit $1.02 billion. I stood before the computer screen in the renovated barn, frozen, watching the numbers dance. No raucous celebration parties. No flashy social media posts. Just me, my small team, and the sound of quiet, exhilarated sighs. We had won. A clean, silent victory. Sharper than any blade. That afternoon my phone rang non-stop. Unknown numbers. Interview requests. Acquisition offers. I turned off my phone, answering no one. Because I knew the real storm was still coming. Vanessa, Aunt Diane, and the rest of the relatives who once treated me like an invisible shadow, surely they were now scrambling to figure out what had happened. And I was ready. Ready for every wave of chaos they were about to unleash. Because this time, I was no longer Mia, the lost, useless little sister in their eyes. I was the true heir to the Carter legacy. I knew that call would come. I just did not think it would come so soon. On Monday afternoon, as I was reviewing a new extraction contract with Hannah and Ryan for an electric vehicle company, my phone buzzed violently. A familiar number flashed on the screen. Aunt Patricia. I smirked, not needing to answer to guess what it was about. She must have smelled money. I let the phone ring until the 5th buzz before picking up, my voice steady. "Hello?" Aunt Patricia's shrill voice squealed like a brake on a slick road. "Mia, sweetheart. We need to talk. Families should enjoy the fruits together, right?" I tilted my head back, staring at the barn ceiling. The same ceiling that had witnessed countless nights of me poring over Grandpa's documents. And laughed. Coldly. "By sharing, you mean dividing up the worthless piece of dirt you once scoffed at?" Silence stretched so long that I could hear her swallowing hard. Do not be so bitter, dear. Your parents would not want to see siblings and relatives divided over money. I tightened my grip on the phone. Really, Aunt? Where was that spirit of unity when it was time to split the inheritance? Without waiting for her reply, I hung up. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew. The real battle had only just begun. 3 days later, I received a court summons. Short, cold. Vanessa Carter and Patricia Carter had filed a lawsuit demanding the division of hidden assets from the Rock Creek property. I laughed dryly, right there in the dusty barnyard. They thought they could bang drums and demand a share and I would panic and beg for mercy? They had forgotten one thing. I was no longer the lost little Mia they used to dismiss. On the day of the hearing, Vanessa showed up with a legal team as big as an NFL roster, wearing a brand new Givenchy dress, her fake confident smile plastered across her face. Aunt Patricia lumbered alongside her, squeezed into a tight dress, eyes sharp like razors. And me? A perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, hair neatly pinned up, gaze cold as ice. Daniel Morgan, my lawyer, strode beside me, his face unreadable. The trial ended quicker than I expected. Their side argued that the inventions, mineral deposits, and Rock Creek sustainable resources should all be considered common family property, to be divided. Daniel stood, his voice cutting like a blade. According to the will, certified in 2004, the entire Rock Creek property, including all structures, physical assets, and intellectual property developed on site, belongs solely to Mia Carter. All inventions, mineral findings, and extracted products fall under inherited assets. This clause is clearly written, signed, and sealed. He slid a thick, heavy copy of the will across the table to the judge. A paper worth millions if you knew how to read it. Vanessa's face flushed red, then drained to ghostly white within minutes. Aunt Patricia's lips twisted, as if she had bitten into a lemon. Finally, the judge struck the gavel, his voice firm. The lawsuit is dismissed. All disputed assets are legally owned by the defendant, Mia Carter. A clean, precise victory, leaving no loophole. But I did not stop there. 3 days later, I personally sent invitations to Vanessa and the remaining close relatives to attend a family meeting at the old mansion, the very place where they had once discarded me like trash. When everyone was crammed around the long walnut wood table, where they had once judged my every move, I stood up and pulled an old leather notebook from my coat pocket. The notebook of Grandpa Jacob Carter. The air was heavy, like lead. I opened the notebook, flipping to a page marked with silver foil. My voice rang out, steady without a tremble. Mia, I left you this land, not because it is valuable now, but because I know, one day, only you, the one who truly understands real value, will see potential where others only see desolation. You are the greatest legacy the Carter family has ever produced. Never doubt that. I closed the notebook, my gaze sweeping across each stunned face in the room. That is why, I said slowly, each word slicing through the faint glimmers of hope left in their eyes. Grandpa left nothing to those who chased after shiny metals. He left it to the one who knew how to dig deep, with her own hands. Vanessa lunged forward, her voice hoarse. We are family, Mia. He was my grandpa too. I smiled, my gaze sharp as ice. Family? When you abandoned me, mocked me, treated me like garbage? No, Vanessa, blood cannot salvage a rotten heart. I closed the leather notebook, buttoned my coat, and walked out of that room without looking back. Behind me, only the sounds of desperate cries and heated arguments remained. Stepping outside, the June wind whipped through my hair. I took a deep breath, smiling for the first time in years. Finally, I had reclaimed everything. Not just assets, but my own dignity and worth. And I swore there would be much more waiting ahead. I knew they would not give up easily. The week following that humiliating family meeting, Vanessa and Aunt Patricia took turns texting, calling, and emailing. Their words softer now, but the greed still oozed from every sentence like the smell of blood in a shark tank. Mia, I am sorry for being so impulsive. We are family after all. Aunt truly wants everyone to grow together, dear. Let's not let money divide us. I read them all. Did not reply. Deep inside, I felt no hatred. Only emptiness. Those people had taught me one thing over the years. True value is never found in your wallet, but in what you build with your own hands. One early morning, as the first light of the sun spilled over the Rock Creek prairie, I sat on the barn porch, cradling a cup of hot coffee, gazing into the distance. Daniel approached, handing me a thick folder. We did it. We bought the entire Charleston estate. I took it, flipping through each signed sealed page. The buyer was listed as Helios Education Foundation, a nonprofit educational fund newly established by Daniel and me. No one, not even Vanessa, knew that the mansion they once paraded as their crown jewel had quietly changed owners. 3 months later, Vanessa plunged into financial crisis. The risky investments made by Luke, her new husband, had failed miserably. The mansion was publicly listed for sale to repay mortgage debts. I did not show up. I did not need to. I simply, quietly, sent a team to complete the transaction. When Vanessa packed her last luxury item and left the mansion she once saw as her pride, I was sitting in Rock Creek, signing the renovation plan to transform the estate into the Helena Carter Science Education Center. Named after my beloved late grandmother, a place for poor children who thirsted for knowledge but were never given a chance. On the opening day of the center, I stood in the grand hall, completely refurbished. Freshly painted white walls, hallways shining with LED lights, and a high-tech science lab expanded into the backyard. Children in light blue uniforms laughed with delight as they touched microscopes for the first time, as they assembled tiny electric motor models with their own hands. A curly-haired girl tugged at my sleeve, her eyes sparkling. "Miss, I want to build machines like Tesla someday." I chuckled, kneeling down. "And you will, even greater than Tesla." That was the real legacy. Not land. Not empty mansions. But creating opportunities, planting hope, and igniting the dreams of young hearts. Vanessa heard the news not long after. One afternoon, as I supervised the construction of a new biology lab, she appeared, standing silently outside the gate. I saw her. Haggard, her once proud face pale. Her eyes heavy with something I could no longer recognize as jealousy or regret. No words needed. No mocking smiles. No pointless arguments. I simply nodded politely, then turned and walked into the center. The laughter of children following every step I took. I had won. Not by humiliating them, but by living a life they could never understand. One late night, as the wind howled across the vast fields, I sat alone on the porch of the wooden house, Grandpa Jacob Carter's notebook resting on my lap. I flipped back to the first page, where his handwriting had faded over time. "True value is not what you inherit, but what you create and share," I whispered, as if making a new promise to myself. "I will never forget, Grandpa." Under the deep night sky, I closed my eyes, letting the wind carry away the past. Tomorrow, I would continue building, with my own hands, a future no one could ever steal. 3 years after Rock Creek Sustainable Resources was listed on the NASDAQ, the world had changed. And so had I. Rock Creek Sustainable Resources, the company we had once only hoped could survive, had now become a global pioneer in sustainable rare earth mining technology. The media called us a historic catalyst for the green mining industry. Investment funds scrambled to pour money into RCSR stock. The company's market capitalization reached $12 billion at the beginning of this year. A number that, had someone mentioned it 3 years ago, I would have thought they were telling a fairy tale. But it was no miracle. It was sweat, tears, sleepless nights, wrestling with every contract line, every research figure, every mental battle against a world full of doubt. And above all, it was the unwavering belief in a dream that only I had dared to see amidst the ruins. I did not move into a luxurious mansion in Miami or Manhattan, as many had expected. I stayed in Rock Creek, in the old two-story wooden house of Grandpa Jacob Carter, where old memories crept between the faded floorboards. I only repaired what was necessary. Reinforced the foundation, replaced the plumbing and wiring, planted a small garden of lavender and sage around the house. No need for extravagance. No need to prove anything to anyone. Every morning, I woke at sunrise, brewed a strong black coffee, and walked slowly across the cleared yard to the old barn. That barn, the one Vanessa once mocked as a rotting chicken coop, was now the true heart of a world-changing empire. Aside, where the rough wooden walls still bore the scratches from Grandpa's time, modern equipment now operated silently in the underground bunkers below. Above, I kept the original structure intact: the scratched work table, the creaky wooden chair, and the blackboard where Grandpa once sketched his wildest ideas. Sometimes, I would stand before that blackboard, running my fingers over the faint chalk lines, wondering what dreams he had whispered into the dark. There were days I sat for hours in silence, letting the winds of Rock Creek whistle through the cracks. There were days I reread the old leather notebook, each line reminding me of the path I had taken and why I started. Not for money, not for fame, but for a deep respect for true value, the kind most of the world had long forgotten amidst the gold rush fever. Under my leadership, Rock Creek Sustainable Resources did more than just extract minerals. We set a new standard for the entire industry, restoring the environment after mining, funding scholarships for environmental engineering students, and developing vocational training programs for local communities. We proved that it was possible to build wealth without destroying the world. That intelligence and perseverance, not blind greed, were the true forces that unearthed real treasures. Occasionally, I received letters from major corporations offering to buy the company. The numbers they proposed could shake anyone: $15 billion, $20 billion. But I always replied with a single sentence: Rock Creek does not sell value, we build value. Vanessa? And Patricia? They had disappeared from my life like wandering winds. Rumor had it that Vanessa now worked part-time at a small car dealership in Savannah, struggling to pay off her debts. Aunt Patricia was said to be drifting from town to town, chasing opportunities she never found. I felt no triumph, only peace. Because I understood now. The best revenge is living a life they can never reach. One summer evening, as the sunset painted the Wyoming prairie crimson, I stood before the barn, holding an old photograph of Grandpa and me, a little curly-haired girl with wide innocent eyes, a silver-haired man, smiling kindly. I pressed the photo against my heart and closed my eyes. "I did it, Grandpa," I whispered. "But this journey has only just begun." Deep inside, I knew one thing for certain. No matter how far I went, no matter how high Rock Creek soared, I would always remember that everything began with one man daring to believe in a little girl no one else cared to notice. From a simple moment, a touch on an old wooden board, a secret door swinging open, a seed of trust, planted quietly, blossoming into a brilliant sky. Mia Carter's story reminds us that true value is not in what we are given, but in how we turn small beginnings into great legacies. Despite being overlooked and rejected, Mia not only stood tall but built a sustainable empire that changed an entire industry. In real life, success does not come from easy inheritance, but from perseverance, wisdom, and unwavering faith in hidden potential, even when the whole world turns away. What do you think about Mia's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And do not forget to follow the channel to discover more touching stories and profound life lessons about family and resilience.